On today's episode, we sit down with Andy Hay. Andy grew up in Brookside, Nova Scotia, and after initially heading to university to study science, he decided to switch into business as that was more to his liking. Once Andy graduated, he entered the insurance industry as an underwriter, but it wasn't something he enjoyed doing, and after 2.5 years, he decided to leave and went on a 6-month trip to Southeast Asia. Upon returning to Nova Scotia, Andy decided to enter the software and technology industry on the sales side, but it still felt like something was missing. Cooking is something Andy has always enjoyed doing for others, and while trying to determine his next move, he tried out for MasterChef Canada and made it on the show. After finishing second place in the competition, Andy realized he could leverage, among other things, his appearance on the show. And with that, Andy's East Coast Kitchen was born. Listen in to hear Andy's story and find out all the exciting things he has in store for the future.
I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same old blues. I was the same old me with the same.
All right, we're back for another episode of Brand New View. I'm here with my co-host, Ben Brammer. How you doing, Ben?
Very well, thank you. Excited to be here.
Good to hear. Always great to hear. We are sitting down tonight with Andy Hay. How are you, Andy?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me, gents.
Awesome. Well, we're actually very happy to have you. This has been a long time coming. Mm-hmm. We've had you on our radar for a while.
Nice.
Quite some time. Excited to sit down and get started.
I'm stoked.
So you grew up in near Peggy's Cove in a nice little subdivision called Brookside. Or would it be more than a subdivision?
No. Perfect description.
Perfect description, yeah.
Go down the Prospect Bay Road. Prospect Bay? That's what it was.
Yeah.
Prospect Road.
Prospect Road, yeah, something like that.
And then take a left at Holt's. You're there.
There it is, yeah.
Holt's Steakhouse.
Holt's soft serve.
Oh, yeah.
The best. Do
Yeah.
they still do the soft serve?
They changed ownership. I don't know what it is after Jack left.
Shame. What was it like growing up in Brookside?
I loved it. It was great. We were obviously close enough to the city, but you get that kind of country lifestyle. So swimming in lakes, running in the woods, playing road hockey. I had a magical childhood in Brookside.
Awesome. So you spent a lot of the time outdoors.
Oh, big time. Yeah, big time. So it was a lot. Again, I think we would, like, as soon as, like, this time of year came around, where spring came until the snow fell, we played ball hockey, like, literally every day. So that was my whole youth. Again, looking back on that, I don't even know if I fully enjoyed playing hockey. It was just what we all did. I had 3 really good buddies, and we just all loved hockey. So it was like everything was just constant around hockey.
It is the Canadian way.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, you're playing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. I would have probably had a very similar upbringing.
Yeah.
Always had a hockey stick in my hand.
Yeah, me too. It's great.
Street hockey. I mean, you yell car, everyone pretty much knows what's going on there.
Oh, yeah, big time. Mini sticks in the winter, too.
Oh,
Yeah.
Every hotel got abused.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, definitely. So we did mention Brookside. What kind of interests did you have growing up?
I think for me, like, interest-wise, was all sports all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, very focused in on that. Like, I'm trying to think what else that I would have been doing. Like, so into hockey, very into golf, played quite a bit of soccer.
Yeah.
That was, like, what I was all about. That's all I wanted to do, was just play sports all the time.
Brookside
Hockey specifically. Like, I really enjoyed. I think I enjoyed it. I always think back on it now. I was like, I played it. I think I had fun. But it's weird because I find, like, as I get older, I almost, like, lost interest in hockey. So I can't tell if that's just me, like, my current day going back and, like, interpreting.
Muddy in those waters.
Yeah. I think I loved it. I'm pretty sure I did.
I know what you mean. This is kind of like a harsh example, but it's kind of like those friends that you grew up with, and then when you drift apart from them, you're like, was I just friends with them because of the proximity?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows?
That's fair. I have the same look back on hockey.
Yeah.
We used to do so much of it that I'm a wee bit resentful.
Yeah.
Of like what else was out there.
That's the way I look at it. Is like, was there
Just a wee
anything
bit.
else that I could have
Yeah.
done? Like, even just play the guitar.
Right?
Why didn't I play the guitar?
Yeah.
I didn't have. It
Same.
wasn't as if I was, like, exposed to a ton of music or, like, people playing the guitar. But I like the romantic idea of learning how to play the guitar. But I feel like it's too late now. I've tried and it's too frustrating.
Absolutely. So, did you go to the Halifax West for high school?
For a year.
For a year. Okay.
Before you
was-
got kicked out?
Yeah. So I went to John A. Just the way that the boundaries worked. I was at John A. for 2 years.
Right.
And Then they switched at the boundaries. So
They
my grade
push
12
in
years.
grade 12 for Halifax
Yeah.
West.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
would
Again,
be
defining
brutal.
moments. It was an interesting moment in time, though, because I think when I was leaving, it was like I was not happy. I did not want to go. Had a girlfriend there. All my best buddies at that time were going to be staying.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is brutal. And you look into, like, is there any way that I can stay at John A? And it's just, like, was a pain in the ass. And, like, it wouldn't work. So I went, but it turned out really great. Like, even just the exposure I was able to get on the hockey team, just meet new people. The year before going to university, where you have to start meeting more people in that sort of setting. So it actually worked out great and really enjoyed it. But it was, at the time, really, really shitty.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
That was my initial feeling. I was like, that would be brutal,
Yeah.
switching in your final year, but it seems like you were able to spin it into a positive.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, on the hockey team, I got way more playing time. They did have a shittier team. Like, our team really wasn't that great. But, and then John A went to provincials, so that kind of sucked. But I was able to get a lot more ice time, which was good.
Got to
And I
pad
feel like
the
I
stats.
got better. Like, I was definitely a better player because I played more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glory days.
Glory days. Glory
It's
days.
fun looking back.
I know, we've all got those images in our head right now. So you mentioned moving to Halifax West for grade 12. Bit of a defining moment as, that year is preparing for university.
Yeah.
Did you have an idea of what you were kind of going to do heading into university?
No, well, not really. I feel like growing up, I was always assuming or thinking that I wanted to become a doctor. That was like my mom was a nurse, and I feel like it was always the thing that she would not vocalize. I didn't feel pressured. It was just like the thing I thought I was going to do. And then getting closer and closer to university, like I realized my grades aren't that great through high school. They're not bad, but they're not the kind of thing that's going to just get you into med school by any means. And I just really struggled with like science courses. I didn't do that well in them. I wasn't that interested. I was trying hard, but I wasn't the cut of my jib at all. So I ended up like getting into university in sciences. And then showed up, and I was like, no, there's no way I'm doing this. Like, went to a calculus class, and then had to go to a chemistry class, and then a physics class. I was like, this is not happening. I was talking to my buddy of mine who's was in business, and he gave me the lineup of his courses. It's like, oh yeah, like I'm going in that. That's way easier.
Business 100,
Yeah.
free
Yeah.
accounting,
Yeah, exactly.
entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
free economics.
Yeah, yeah.
You like how I threw in the free second?
I did enjoy it. That was my first year exactly. I went into science, and I was same thing. I just went to the classes I went to. I was just not there whatsoever.
I had a conversation about this the other day with a good friend of mine who, super smart guy, did sciences, did really well, has now done his MBA, and he's still really involved with the university I went to at Mount A. Okay. And we're talking about basically the format of university, and it is changing a little bit, but just the theoretical approach and focus on a lot of these degrees, like commerce-wise. I think of a lot of the courses I was taking, like marketing. It was like looking at the thought of marketing or the frameworks, and like you still didn't leave with anything tangible that people are actually hiring for. Like, oh, do you know how to send an email marketing campaign? It's no. I don't, but I know what the 4 P's are.
And
it's like it's. I find it.
Wait, what are they? Price, place, product,
Promotion.
Promotion. Yeah.
Nice.
I know the
nice
4
job,
P's.
boys.
Nice. But it was just. I find like even with high school and getting ready for this, I just wish that I was exposed to more. I think is like in high school, and maybe that I hope that this has changed a lot more. Like the perception of going to an NSCC back then was like very much two-tiered. Like it was like, oh, if you were a certain student, you would go to university, and if you weren't, you might go to NSCC. Yeah. And it was like these tiers, but now it's like those people that did go to NSCC, they're like by 25 making $100,000, buying their own houses, right. Driving around in trucks. Like
they're lapping the rest of us.
Yeah, they really do. So it just I don't know how we even got on this, but it's like that concept of I think why I wasn't interested in school. I think that I like learning, and I like I didn't mind the structure of school. It was just what I was learning and the way that I was learning it didn't resonate with me.
Mm-hmm. You switched into business after the 1 year?
Not even the 1 year, like a couple days in, I was like,
I should have done that.
I'm gonna switch, and then just did switched into, and this was, I actually went to a year at St. FX, and
Your first year, like?
first year was at St. FX.
Was
yeah.
that X? Okay.
Didn't get into res. Had to live off campus first year as an 18-year-old, which was shit. It really sucked. I really hated it.
What exactly? Walk us through that. I don't know exactly what that means. You don't.
So you just didn't get into residence. So there's
didn't
so
have
much
enough
demand,
rooms?
especially at the time, to get into X and get into residence, that one of my courses, I didn't have a high enough mark. I think it was like pre-cal or something like that to get into sciences. So I had to redo it in the second semester. But then by the time I actually like resubmitted my application, it was too late and there was no rooms left at res. But I already accepted to go there and I wanted to go there. So I lived off campus with a buddy of mine. But that one really sucked because living off campus is fine in your third or fourth year or whatever. But once you have like a bit of an established social group, but it was tough. It was it wasn't very fun. It was fun thinking back on it, but it was strange. It was lonely.
It's just that much tougher. I mean, I went to Dal on and off, and I lived at home for most of that. And you're just on the outside of the bubble. I mean, you can go to the party, but at the end of the day, I mean, they are living right next door to one another. They're what? It's just you're going to become friends with them, not me. But what can you do? Survived. Here we are.
In terms of university, I mean, the biggest thing I've touched on this before, but was the experience aspect. And if you're not able to do that 100%, then I mean, everything starts to suffer. Your social life, the marks, the books. And after my first year, like you have to dive in.
After my first year, I knew it wasn't a fit because I was so excited for the university experience, and I just knew it wasn't a good fit for me at St. FX. So I ended up transferring to Mount A, and like loved it. Got in res, met a huge group of friends that I'm still best friends with. But it just was like an actual fit. The thing, even selecting universities, I really didn't take it that seriously. I think that like I was so focused on the social piece of it. Like I wanted to go to a party school, which is so stupid when I think back on it. Like that was like my main vision of like looking where to go. And without actually, I didn't go on any campus tours. Didn't like really do any research, and I think that like a lot of people just do it, like randomly choose whether someone they know went there, or there's
a
like
bunch of them are going from your class,
exactly. Like a brother has gone,
or
like
someone went there, and just I think it's like anything. It's like choosing a good job, a good partner, a good whatever. It's just make sure it's a good fit for you, because it's going to be a similar experience, but if you don't fit, if it doesn't feel right, you're just not going to be able to
focus,
or get the most out
of
it.
Do well,
Right. Because so much of the experience is outside the classroom.
Yeah, totally.
You're not going to be able to enjoy it inside if you're not enjoying it.
But that was a big thing, is making that switch from St. FX to Mount A. And just, that was a big moment. Just to get there, started playing rugby again. I played some rugby in high school, and then once I got to Mount A, I started playing on the rugby team, met a huge group of people, really fell in love with that sport, and ended up playing that sport really for another decade after joining at Mount A. So it was a good moment to get back in that, and just gave me like my people, which was cool. Because I didn't feel like I had that at X at all.
It's nice. It's nice to feel a part of the people. I know what you mean. I've said that a couple times in the last few weeks. Burnside Gym. Shout out Burnside.
The sauna crew. What
up? My sauna people. But no, they're the strangest group of people, but they're my people, so I really enjoy it. I fit in so well there. But I was going to just touch, for those listening, Mount Allison, Sackville, New Brunswick?
Yes, Sackville, New Brunswick. Bagtown.
Well, that's good. So you kind of found your people at Mount A. And coming out of there, or did you, if you transferred out, so you had the full year at X, did that count as 1 year at X?
I get to transfer some credits. I can't remember how it all shook out. I think I got all of the credits transferred over to Mount A from X.
So you got 3 years at Mount A.
Yeah, so 3 years at Mount A.
Okay. And what was your plan coming out of there?
I don't even know. Like when you come out, like I think I knew what I wanted to do. I was like very into doing commerce. Like I loved the courses that I was doing, and like it's so funny when you're finishing up fourth year, you just think you're gonna like walk in and become some sort of like executive right off the bat. So had like a very big ego and that gets quickly checked when you start sending out resumes when you have like a B average.
You finish school up
good,
on
though.
like a Wednesday and you think you're going to get hired on a
Yeah,
Thursday.
yeah,
and
making
it's
100
not until
G's
the
right out of
following
school.
year.
Director of
wants
strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my marks were good.
Yeah, they were fine. It's social. But no, when I left, my dad owned an insurance brokerage at the time, so I didn't know what I wanted to do, and like he's always been a great business mentor of mine. So it'd be like he's like, well, if you ever do want to come into the insurance business, you should learn it. So go work for an insurance company as an underwriter. So underwriter is basically like looking. Tune in, everybody. What is an underwriter?
Here we go.
It's basically assessing risk. So it'd be like a restaurant. Like how much insurance would you charge them every year? And there's like math to do in the back end.
Okay.
And again, going back to what I said earlier, I'm fucking brutal at math. I'm terrible at math. So that job was not a good fit, but it was a fairly good job right out of school. But I really, 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 truly hated it.
Yeah.
Like with every piece of my soul, I fucking hated it so much. But I didn't want to give up, and I didn't know what else to do. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, part of me was like, I should just like quit and just get a job that's kind of fun. But I never did it, and was in there for 2.5 years. And I think part of it was like, I knew if I was going to go and work for my dad, this experience was good. But I think we both knew that was never going to happen. Like I just knew that it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed there for 2.5 years, and it was horrible. I really, really hated it. I have
Mostly to do with the math or culture?
just like everything,
Everything.
like culture. I was the youngest person on my team by
that's tough.
I think 30 years. Like not an exaggeration. So like all I had in common with my whole team was their kids.
Yeah.
And then it just wasn't a good fit. It was pretty dry and dusty and old. And just wasn't for me at all. But I stuck with it 2.5 years, and then my girlfriend at the time who's now my wife, was finishing up law school. So I knew that I was always going to travel. Like this was even when I was working at this place. It's like, okay, I'll stay here for a while, and then if I ever do go work for my dad, if I go to do something else, I'll like take some time off and go travel. So Jess was wrapping up her final year of law school, and she like rigged it around that she worked in the summer at legal aid, and that allowed her to take the final semester off. So at that point we're like, okay, let's go travel somewhere. And my dad's from Scotland. My uncle had lived all over the Middle East. My parents traveled a lot like when they were younger, so I had a fairly good worldview and knew that travel was going to be important. I had backpacked Europe in like second year university. But I wanted to do like a big trip, a big adventure trip, and like take in something like really real and far away. So we booked a trip. We were gone for 6 months and headed over to Southeast Asia. So that was a big moment. Like at 20, I would have been like say 23, 24, and had worked in this job for like 2.5 years. My dad was in the industry. It's like a very cliquey industry. And then like realizing it's like, okay, I'm not going to do this, and I'm definitely probably not going to come back. And like just quitting that job, quitting any job is actually fairly terrifying to do. And I think it's so terrifying. There's many, many people that never quit a job that they hate with all their being, just because it's a scary thing to do.
With each day that passes and they haven't quit, it's like
yeah, it just
mounting,
gets worse.
mounting.
Like there's
Yeah,
many
it's just
people that
getting
just have a
worse
full
and
career
worse,
and
yeah.
just being like, I
That's
hate
a
it every
great
day of
point.
it. But they were great about it, and it was like a big moment. Even though like anytime you have those conversations that your voice is shaking, at that point it was like so scary to do, but it's so relieving just when you get to the other side and that final day when you're just like, yes, I'm out, I made it out, and I'm gonna be going on this like huge trip. That was like
180.
Yeah, that becomes like a reoccurring theme in my life, actually. These like big 180 moments of like recognizing like this isn't the like wrong track, and just being like, okay, I'm off, and making the jump. So that was the first big one that was super liberating. And still, my wife and I, my girlfriend at the time, we jumped on a plane. We flew to Bangkok. And we had like a loose plan we had like our flights, some of the flights booked around, but no accommodations. You booked them on the fly. And it was lovely. It was amazing. It was totally life-changing.
It's incredible, yeah.
We became total hippies, grew a massive beard. My hair was down to my shoulders. We just would wear like long flowy stuff, like tons of necklaces and bracelets and stuff like that. It was super cool. It was amazing.
I'm in love.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so much adventure, such amazing, and that really is like talking 180s. That was where like the food bug was planted for me, because you're going into this whole world that I had never really, like, we're in Halifax, especially like 10 years ago. There wasn't really that much cuisines here that were really exciting. Like, I hadn't really ever tried real Thai food, real Vietnamese food, really any Southeast Asian food. But now you're slingshot into this city where they're cooking on the street everywhere, and there's fire and there's smoke and there's smells and there's rats running around, and they're like, it's just like it's sensory overload. It's wild. And then you have like the first time you have, this is basic, but like a pad thai in Bangkok from a lady on the street that's making on like a propane torch. It's like, that is crazy. It's crazy. It was unbelievable. And I think that even just watching these people cook was like, at the time wasn't thinking that I'm going to cook, but it was like, this is cool. Like, I love the visual element of all of this. So that was pretty amazing. And then we did Thailand. We went up to the north of Thailand. Love that.
Northern Thailand was probably my favorite.
Yeah, it's a special. Yeah, Chiang Rai. We did Chiang Rai. We did a volunteer stint in just outside of Chiang Rai.
Cool.
Right on the border of, it's Burma and
Laos.
And Laos, yeah. So it's like the Golden Triangle.
Yes,
it's called.
yes.
So we worked in there. We did some worked in a community and like built some schools and hung out. It was amazing. That was like a really, really eye-opening trip and just experience in general. And it was cool because there was two different groups of people. There was people that were going there to teach, and there was others that were just there to like do maintenance or like just build stuff. And I felt so great and like impactful because I was big and I could like lift heavy things. I was so psyched every day, and like the people that were working there at the foundation in the village, they were just like, oh my god, he's so strong. And I remember just lifting these huge rocks. I was like, you know what, I had some impact here by, even if it was just moving rocks. It was a crazy time.
That's great. You just stay on as the village giant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was great. The mountain.
It really is a culture of food over there, among other things.
Exactly.
And it's so incredible. It's everywhere. You can't avoid it. It really is in the streets, on every corner.
Yeah. In Vietnam, it's amazing because they really don't. You start talking to more people, and since then I've just read so much, like so many cookbooks and books and just chronicles of traveling and eating in Asia. And you look in like a lot of Vietnam specifically, there's not a ton of refrigeration. Like, people wouldn't have a fridge in their home, and if they did, it would be like a really small one for the most part, because there's so much food just available on the street, and it's unbelievable. Like, there's no way that you can make it as good or as cheap as they're doing it just outside your door. Yeah. So you go out and you get a bowl of like pho or noodles or whatever, and it's really, really cheap, and it's really, really fucking delicious. So you see a lot of people there, like, they're just like scootering, like literally on scooters, because scooters are everywhere, and they've got like bags of soup tied up, and they'll just like get somewhere and eat it. But yeah, it's truly amazing, the culture of food and just the way that food is looked at and eaten, and the types of flavors and the freshness and the funk and the crunch and the bitterness and the heat. Like, everything was just so overwhelming and amazing. And then, like, not fast forwarding through the trip, but you make it like through 6 months, I'm now hooked on this food, and then you come home and you're like, whoa, no, I'm now craving this random dish that I had in northern Thailand. Like, I can't get it anymore, so I'm gonna have to figure out how to make it. And so then I started like going into all the different Asian grocery stores and just like kind of poking around and seeing what I could figure out. And then it just like, I started getting more obsessed with like, oh, maybe I'll get like, what is like a good Thai restaurant in New York City? Oh, they have a cookbook. Like, I'll buy the cookbook, and then looking at the ingredients, and they're like giving you different hints on like what ingredients to get at Asian grocers. And then you explore it further. You make a dish. You're like, oh my God, I did it. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to buy another cookbook, and they introduce you to, and like it continues and continues. And even still, like, that's one of my favorite things to do is like going into the little family owned grocery stores. And now, like, I try to ask a ton of questions, so I'm getting better where they'll like take me by the hand and like show me the different ingredients and tell me which one's a good one. And so cool. It's great. Yeah, and it almost takes you back to those travels. Is some of those, it's it's pretty amazing to go into these small family-run Asian grocery stores. Like, it's amazing. It's like being right back.
It really is.
Yeah.
There's 2 or 3 close to here.
The one on Granville that just recently opened.
I haven't been to that one.
They have, because we had in Bangkok, Lay's had wasabi chips.
Oh.
At one point, it was just like a promotion.
Yeah.
And we have looked everywhere and couldn't find them. Then we found it was a different brand, not Lay's, but still worth it.
Yeah.
So I guess you probably had to look for employment when you came home.
Yeah, so it was great, and I think that was like a big thing, just being able to step away from what I was doing at the time, really evaluate. And I had a lot of time. I had 6 months, and it was a lot of just like Jess and I hanging out. I read like 40 books in 6 months. A lot of like thinking and just like talking, and just trying to figure out like what the next move was. Because Jess said I was actually just graduating law school, so it was like a new time for both of us. And so I like really started looking at, like, do I want to go and work for my dad and become an insurance broker and eventually take over, which again would have been a very probably smart, safe bet. Like, I probably would have made like really good money, would have owned my own company really young. I think it could have been interesting, but it just wasn't a fit. Like, it wasn't going to work for me, and I kind of decided over there, it's like, okay, I'm not going to do this. And at that time, I realized like social media was blowing up. Like, it was super cool. It was new. It was like the thing young people at a university were doing, and you could like sneak into a good job because people were just hiring like social media coordinators just because they knew they needed something. And I was lucky. There was a company at the time in they're based out of Fredericton, but they had a big office here. Radian 6 was the name of it. And they created like a group. They created basically the first ever social media monitoring system. So you could put in any keyword and then pull back. And at that time, you get like Facebook, Twitter, blogs, everything. So Dell was the first like big sell that they ever had, where it's like Dell wasn't doing anything in social media, and they were in a meeting, and they're just like, well, like, are you listening at all on social media? They're like, no, social media is never not used. No one's talking about Dells. And they just pumped in the word like Dell. And you could do like Dell sucks, Dell whatever, like different keywords.
Yeah.
And it just started bringing up all these blogs. This one specific one was called Dell Hell. And it was all about people complaining about Dell computers. And like, that was a big, huge aha moment. And like right now that seems so obvious and so small, but at the time it was like, oh my God. Like, these brands were freaking out, and this company was based out of Fredericton, totally exploded, was selling to the biggest companies in the world. They get acquired by Salesforce.com for like $500 million. It was a huge acquisition. Like, that trickle-down effect like truly changed the tech scene in Nova Scotia, in Atlantic Canada. Like, you're talking, people made some huge money off that.
That's huge. Yeah. Salesforce, biggest CRM in the world.
Yeah, and they're just so. And this was their first.
Make bank.
This was their first like exploration into what has basically become like the Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Not to nerd out. So the reason this short story is like I got onto. I went on, joined at Radian 6 right at the acquisition point. So I missed it by like 2 weeks. So I didn't get any of the money like through it.
No shares.
No shares. That's all good. And
so positive.
Yeah, it worked out all right.
It's all good.
Yeah, they. So that was an amazing learning experience. I had interviewed very well, and I got a job I probably wasn't qualified for based on that interview, and I finally felt like this is exactly what I want to be doing. And it was sales. Like, I was doing tech sales, selling the software, being able to talk about this cool technology, talking to huge brands, and then making some serious money for like a 25-year-old. You're talking like, okay, like, I just closed a deal. Like, that's a $5,000 paycheck. That's amazing.
Nice.
And it just like, it felt that it allowed me to realize that I am coin operated too. So it's like these little nuggets of things that you don't know about yourself until you really explore it. But I realized like, I like making money. Like, that's something I want to do more of. And then just like that was a super cool experience, because you're working for the largest CRM company in the world. They're massive budgets. Their head office is in San Francisco. They've got offices in like New York, Chicago. Like, you'd be just sent as a team to Las Vegas for like a conference, and you're like a 25-year-old dude. You got an Amex card there. It was like, it was super fun.
Wow.
Learning a lot, and it was good. But then it's like anything. I find this was something like basically characterized my 20s was like I was ambitious, but it also, I think I was tricking myself that how do I articulate this? I think I was tricking myself in thinking that I was ambitious when I think I was avoiding doing hard work in order to like choose a path. And I think there's a lot of people there that like I'm still guilty of it, where it's like you think that you're being ambitious by wanting more, but it's actually you're just wanting something else, and like redirecting the focus from like you got to do the work. And that's something I'm realizing now is like what people don't just fall into things generally, and even if they do, it's like that's just a starting point. Like if you want anything, you got to work.
Yeah.
And that's something that took me a while to realize. And like even I was at Salesforce, I was there for 2 years making really good money. It was fun, and then I was like constantly thinking, like, oh, I'm gonna leave and go start my own company. I'm gonna leave and go work for someone else. Blah 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 blah. But it was just it was a weird time thinking back on, because like sometimes it's the grass is always greener. Like you think you want something else, but then they went through rounds of layoffs. So I made it through one round of layoff, didn't get laid off, and then the bear came back again, and I got laid off from Salesforce. And that was like where this whole story takes like a very interesting turn. Like things get like, they start moving quick, because I was like, okay, I know that I can do sales. I can get a sales job. But I know I was incredibly like antsy in the later part of that like first round at Salesforce, that I wanted to start my own company. I've always been really interested in like wanting to start my own company. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. Like this is the time. And I ended up starting a company with a friend of mine, and it didn't work out the way that I thought it was going to. So we ended up having to, for a short period of time, move to Ontario, just me and 2 other guys. We had signed a contract with Eastlink. The numbers look good, so it was like I was blinded by the numbers here. But basically what we did, we were going to create like a sales team that would go to rural Ontario towns, knock on doors to sell cable TV. It was like cable phone and internet, and like you're in rural ass Ontario. It was the dead of winter. It was like that winter, can't even remember what it was, but it was like the super super cold one where it was like minus 30, minus 40 every day, and we're just out there. And like when kind of the way I had been sold on the idea that I would go up there and do the hiring and not have to really do any of the selling door to door, which is stupid. You should never start a business where you're unwilling to not, like you have to be able to do every single job that exists. And at that point, like I thought I wasn't gonna have to, and really didn't want to, and it was a horrible period of time. It was a really horrible period of time. We didn't get the traction we thought. We were losing money. It was super stressful. My wife was at home. We had just moved into a new house. Like my life at home was very comfortable, and then I ripped myself out of it because I wanted to run my own business so badly. That I just jumped at an opportunity that didn't make sense. It wasn't a business I was passionate about or cared about. I just saw like a dollar value, and I was like, I'm going to do it. I don't care what it is. I just want to run my own business. I want to make money, without really understanding what entrepreneurship really is. It's like, it's doing something, what in my opinion, it's like doing something you're passionate about and willing to go all in on the good times and the bad. And there, like as soon as the times got tough, I was like, I'm out, peace, like I'm done. Like I left. And it was, again, like looking back on the business, I'm not overly proud on the way that I acted or the decisions I made. But then you realize, like in entrepreneurship sometimes, or like in business, that you just get so desperate. Like if you're chasing something or there's pressure, you just get really desperate, and like you just make shitty decisions. Yeah. And you don't think about things, and you just like do things out of fear, without.
That's life, isn't it?
Yeah, really. Yeah. Well, it can be like things. That was the one period of my life where I felt was like I'm totally out of control. Like I don't understand what's happening. Like I feel like I'm not in control of what's happening. And so again, at that point, like this was 2 good friends that I was doing it with, and then 3 months in, I was like, guys, I'm out. Like I'm the most stressed I've ever been. I'm miserable. This is not what I signed up for. I don't think I'm helping you guys here. Like I think I'm actually like hindering. Like I want out. Like I'm giving up my shares. Like you guys take them. But that was a really like dark period of my life. Like I still look back on that as like wartime, where it was like that was entrepreneurial boot camp in the worst way. Yeah. Lost money. Really kind of like lost friendships. just like lost confidence in myself and like starting a business. Was like, okay, that's not for me. Like, I just want a safe government job. I never want to do that again. But that was like a
rough first lesson.
Yeah, it was a first lesson. The funny thing is, I say I want to get a government job, but I always knew that I was gonna like want to start a company again. That I was going to do it again at some point.
I'm curious what left you thinking that. Was it because of your dad's influences, perhaps, or is it just something that you innately had?
It's the only job left for the pension.
No, not government.
Like running my own business.
Yeah.
It was. I kind of
that started young.
I skipped over this when I was at Mount A. One of the summers I ended up going out to Calgary and working for a friend of mine, who we grew up with back in Brookside, and Matt Dory.
Shout
out to Matt Dory. So he was like, even when we were like 12 years old, he was doing university programming courses. So he was like a computer whiz. He was the kid
Smart.
in junior high that was like burning CDs. Every junior high had it. Like, you had that one person that you go to their locker and you like get your custom CD burnt, and like they bring it in, and he was like making a ton of cash there. Anyway, he like was always super fascinated in computers, and that sounds so old. Big computer guy.
He's part of Future Kids.
Yeah.
Now
so
that's every 12-year-old.
Yeah.
No.
His family ended up leaving and going to Montreal and then to Calgary. And then he was in high school and he started like basically a computer repair company was his first thing. He was like doing different contract jobs and building different pieces of software and fixing computers. And then he started like making quite a bit of money from that. And then he's like, oh shit. Like, and then he saw this Salesforce thing happening in San Francisco. Everything's moving to the cloud. And he thought, okay, well, if Salesforce is doing this for CRM, what if I like have a niche of CRM that I focus on? So he ended up building a CRM for dental companies. They would host all their images and like all the patient records and all that stuff. So he was 19. They had just secured $2 million in like seed funding. This was like before this really took off in Canada as far as like young tech entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
It was still pretty new. And he was like this wonder kid in Calgary. And this was like boom time in Calgary. Like real estate was insane. So I ended up going out there and living with him and his family for the summer. And that was like a totally life-changing period of time for me. And I think that was the moment where it was like, I'm going to run my own company and I'm going to do this, because I saw the way he looked at the world, and I saw the passion he had, the fact that he was like, it was also pretty swanky. He had like a bright yellow Beamer. He had like an office downtown. He was surrounded by like really rich people. It was just, he was
living the
phenom.
Balling.
Yeah, he was, and he was super smart and was like the whiz kid of Calgary. And he just started introducing me, because he had really good mentors. He started introducing me to like the craziest books, from like self-help books to like entrepreneurship books. He was like, again, at that time, I was living with him, so he's like, okay, tomorrow we're going to be at the office at 5:30. I'm going to meditate until like 6:45. So I'd be at the office, and like at 20 years old, and I'd just be like reading self-help books or like entrepreneur books and like talking to him, talking to the COO. I'm getting like dragged along to these different like things that he was going to as like a prodigy. But then I left, and just like after that, the bug was in me, and you're reading all these books, and I just, at that point, I think that's when the bug truly got implanted, where it's like, okay, I got to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Because he was just like, if you ever want to like truly be yourself, you have to work for yourself, or like all that different stuff. So it's like a big moment in time. Like if I think of like why I want to be an entrepreneur, and I am, is really going back to that summer.
So that kind of got the bug going.
Yeah, and then where were we? So then I got back from Ontario, and it was a pretty dark time. And like my wife, she's a lawyer, but at the time, just starting off, wasn't making like a ton of money, and we were running out of money. And it was like, oh my god, every month you're going into the red. You're just feeling super stressed. It was brutal. So I ended up kind of reaching back out. I kind of tucked my tail between my legs and just went back and started talking to people. I knew I could go get a job in tech and do tech sales, just because I'd worked at Salesforce for 2 years. Had done pretty well. Like I knew I'd be okay. But it ended up kind of on a whim, reaching out to an old colleague of mine, and we just started chatting. He's like, you know what, you should like chuck your resume back in here. Like, you weren't fired. It was layoffs, so it had nothing to do with your performance. So like, you know what, you're right. I ended up talking to a few people that were in like big positions at Salesforce and said like, I'm looking. They're like, you know what, I think there might be a position. So I put my resume back in at Salesforce and got back in. And so that was like, I got laid off in August. This would have been like March, back in there. It was super serendipitous because it was like such a stressful period of time. But by getting laid off and starting back, instead of working for Salesforce Canada, I ended up starting working for Salesforce US, and it doubled my salary by just taking that period off. So then I started reporting into Indianapolis, and that was a cool confidence builder too, because I was on the team, the Radiant 6 specialist, or the social media specialist. So we're working with like big, huge, major brands, and you've got like a really, really strong sales team that's bringing you in as a specialist to talk about social media and listening and activating and really using social business to craft your strategy. So that was cool. Like I got really good exposure. I think I built some confidence. I was traveling around like all over North America doing meetings, and things were pretty good there. But again, started getting restless. The office itself didn't really have that many people in it, so I felt like, again, pretty lonely. It was a lot of like on the phone, a lot of phone sales, and then I started getting restless again. And then I was like, oh, you know what this is? This isn't the job. I like the job. It's the company. It's too big. It's faceless. Like I need to be in a tech startup. So again, I was like, you know what? After 2 years, I was like, I'm gonna go. I got approached by someone I used to work with. They were at a new startup in town. They kind of made some big promises, and I was like, you know what? Let's go. Like it's a good opportunity. I'm not loving the position I'm in. It's too big of a company. I want to go to a smaller place and have an impact.
Everything's kind of in place in the big company. It's
And I thought, So
you're replaced by lunch if you let go of those places. Like with all due respect, like
it is. Yeah, you are. You're
just another body.
Yeah.
Whereas in a smaller company, you matter.
And you're still the problem solver.
It depends.
Depends.
It depends.
But
Like sometimes, like sometimes you do. And I think that this was interesting going into this other company. I was brought in because I had experience at Salesforce. I had sold some big deals. I knew like the Salesforce is very, very good at training. They give you like world-class training, like from a sales perspective. So you're going in there, you're teaching some of the younger account executives. I was given a bit of a leadership role, and the first little bit was super exciting. But then, like anything, like it started creeping back in. There was like some management issues. Like I didn't particularly enjoy being very political here. My boss, it was one of these moments that's what ended up happening. It was like it got to a point where I was again so insanely stressed, and my wife and I had just had our first daughter. There's like obviously going through that and having a child and not really sleeping and working at a job you didn't really like. It wasn't even the job I didn't like. It was just like a lot of pressure at the job. And then it just like started feeling like, oh my God, I was just only concerned about my boss. Like, what is he going to think of this? Like, oh my God, I'm scared. He's going to be in town. Like I'm going to have to like pretend that I was doing something, or like this deal's not going to close in time. I'm like starting to make stuff up. And
that would consume you.
Yeah, it does. It totally started to consume me, and then we ended up going on a trip with Violet, our daughter, when she was 7 months old, and we went for a month in Costa Rica, and I was like working down there, and I did 2 weeks vacation, 2 weeks like working, and my wife was there, and my parents were there, and they saw how stressed I was getting as soon as I would have to like get on calls or like they were just dealing with my boss. He was calling me on vacation, and they saw it, and they're like, whoa, like you're very stressed out right now. I was like, I am. And then it was just like a moment being like, why am I allowing this random stranger to control my life?
Yeah.
And then it just was like, I am done. Like I'm not having anyone control my life anymore. I don't care about the money. I've made not made all the money, but I had a good salary, and that is not what I want. What I want is freedom. What I want is control. Like this has to end. Like it had to end. And that was like the moment coming back from Costa Rica. I was like, I need to get out. I need to make a plan, and I need to figure out what the next move is, because this isn't working for me again. And I was listening to like a Gary V podcast.
Oh, Gary.
Shout out to Gary V. I know you're listening. And he was just like, he was talking about how like he had started his company young, obviously, but he was like at 30, I was driving and I looked in the rearview mirror and I saw myself. And he's like, I knew I was on the wrong path. I was doing something, but I wasn't like doing enough to get me to where I want to go. And I remember reading that because I had just turned 30, and I was like, you know what? And this was at home all the time. Like what I was doing to relax and calm down and was cooking. So I would be cooking all the time. We'd be having huge parties on the weekend that I'm like throwing down for like 15 people, plated dinners. I just loved cooking. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Loved eating. Was like inhaling cookbooks. There were stacks of cookbooks on my bedside table, and I always was like, you know what, I want to do this. Like I want to go cook. I would love to do it. I was like, oh, but then it's when you think of the practical nature of that, it's like I'm not going to like go, and I would have to go into a kitchen and start in the dish pit. I was like, I'm not gonna do that. And then like he said something, and I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna just stick with this for 3 more years until I'm 33, and then at that point, I'm going to do it. I'm going to, like, go be a cook. And then I was like, if that's your mindset, if that's what, like, why put that out in the future? If that's out there, if you just do it now, by the time you're 33, you have 3 years experience.
Right.
And then, like, you don't know what that's going to be. And then I was like, that's it. I'm done. And so my wife was going back from mat leave shortly after we get back from Costa Rica. And we kind of wanted to have our daughter go part-time to daycare. So just the way it worked out, like my mom was going to take a day, her mom was going to take a day, and there was just one day that no one was going to be looking after Violet. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. Like I'm going to leave my job, I'll figure it out. I'll do some like marketing consulting or whatever. But that Friday, like I'll be there, like I got her. And I put my 2 weeks in and quit without really knowing what was going to happen. I thought that I knew that I could have done something with like consulting or doing some marketing work. That was like the route that I assumed I was going to go. But again, I was antsy, and I knew that I didn't want to get back into the exact same job again because I knew I didn't like it and it wasn't a fit. So I started like looking at other options. I started looking, it's like, okay, I would like, my brother-in-law had just become a firefighter. I was like, okay, that would be a pretty ssweet job. Like I could see myself doing that. It's physical, it's active, like it's working with your hands. And then, I was actually like filling it. I studied for the test, was training for it, was like filling out the application, and then the what are they called? The producer from MasterChef called because I had like in the summertime just tried out the previous summer had tried out for MasterChef, and this was the year before Violet was born. It did pretty well in the auditions, and they were like, you made it pretty far, but like with your daughter coming, I just don't think it makes sense for us to take this any farther. I was like, that's cool. But then they called me like right after I quit my job, and they're just like, hey, we're coming back to Halifax for auditions this year. Are you coming? And I knew that they were there, but I was like, I'm not gonna, I hadn't really thought about it. And then I was like, yeah, no, I will. I'm going to come. And then I kind of thought back on the audition from the year before. And I was like, okay, like I saw the other cooks. I know what they're looking for. I know that you got to bring it, like bring a good dish. But what's more important is like because with the audition process, you have to do a dish, but then you also have to do like an on-camera interview. So I knew that that's the big piece. It's a TV show first, it's a cooking show second. Yep. And I knew that with my sales experience that I was comfortable talking. I don't mind being on camera. It didn't really bother me that much. I knew that if I could bring a lot of energy, try to be pretty articulate, and just be as honest, as vulnerable as possible, I had like a good chance. So it was so funny at this point. Like my wife and I are like getting ready to plan a trip, or we were doing something like booking a cottage away. And she was like, okay, like this weekend, October 16th, are you good? I was like, you know what? Let's just wait. Like, let's just wait and hear back from MasterChef. Cause like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get on. And she's like, okay, yeah, we'll wait. And then I ended up getting the call being like, okay, the audition went well. We're interested to look a little bit further. We're going to send a camera crew and get some B-roll at your house. And we'll go from there. So then like the day comes where they're coming to get B-roll, and we get a knock on the door. And it's like one of the judges from the show, and they've got like the camera set up, and it's like, you're on the next season of MasterChef, and it just so like cool. It was the craziest thing, like so serendipitous. Like I still can't believe it all happened, and like that was just the start, being like okay, and then it's like okay, I'm going up to. I have a 1-year-old daughter. My wife just went back from mat leave, and then I'm told that if you want to accept this challenge, you got to go to Ontario. For up to 7 weeks. You could be gone for a weekend, or you could be gone for 7 weeks, and you're totally sequestered. no phone, no internet, no TV, nothing. I get one phone call a week home for 10 minutes, and it's monitored.
That's worse than prison, I think.
It was crazy. And God love my wife, like unbelievable the support that like I
Shout out,
from
Jess.
all big time shout out to her.
Yeah,
My
big
whole
time.
family have been amazing.
Big
My
time
family,
shout out
my
to
wife's
Hayes.
family have like, oh man, without their support, like couldn't have done it, because even just basic stuff like my wife has a late meeting. Can somebody pick up Violet from daycare? Because like.
And you can't even relay that because you're not
No,
on
like
your
I
phone.
wouldn't
You're
even know
rendered
about
useless.
it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
even know about it. I was on vacation basically.
Right.
Well, I mean, it was from a selfish standpoint, it was amazing. It was the best, like some of the best memories of my life. Like you're at that point, I had a lot of responsibility, and then you just like step out of it. You're living like
Completely.
in shared accommodations. 13 people. They're all food nerds. They're dropping off like literally hundreds of dollars worth of groceries almost every day, and you're cooking like wagyu beef or like uni or king salmons and lobster and like all these truffles. It was crazy. You're using the best equipment, and like it was the craziest time ever. It was super fun. And then you just like go have a couple drinks, and then like find your like ally in the group and like go grab a hot tub. Shout out to the sauna crew again.
Right.
There it is.
And just like
There's
go
nothing
chat
wrong
about
with
like strategically who you're gonna try to knock off, and like whose head are you gonna try to get into, and like what do you think the next challenge is gonna be.
That's
So
like Rez.
it was exactly Rez. It was exactly
You got your res experience. Then.
yeah exactly.
And then some.
It was wild. It was so awesome. And then you go through this whole experience, and you just learn a lot about yourself. Like you're walking onto the set, and you're talking like it's CTV's top grossing TV show of the winter. So you're talking CTV is a massive media organization. There's a big budget behind that. There's 300 people on the floor at all time. You walk in there, it's a massive set, wall of cameras, lights, makeup, like it's a huge production, and it was like a lot. And some people can handle it, and some people like get consumed by what's all happening. And that was a cool thing to kind of put yourself into, and just realize like, okay, I can handle this. Like it's intimidating, it's terrifying, and I feel like I'm gonna be sick, but I can like stand up and survive. That's how I felt when I got like home from the show. Like I obviously knew the result, and I was like, holy shit, like I can't believe I fucking survived that. That was insane to go through, and just the pressure that they put you under, and just to deliver was really cool. And then you get thrown at the other end, and it's like it all never happened. You get home, It's like 7 weeks of filming, you're back, you know that your life has changed, but you know it's like nothing's guaranteed. Like that's just like I said earlier, like you have to do all the work now begins. That's all it was. Like you fell into it, but the work now has to happen. But you can't tell anybody.
Yeah.
So you're not allowed to tell anyone the results. I wasn't even allowed to tell people I went. Some people knew, but then you just like come back, and now it's like before on my Instagram, like putting up like a couple pictures of my daughter, and then like one day out of nowhere, it's like me putting up a bunch of food photography and like just not going to work, and people are like, what is this guy doing? What is happening?
He's having a midlife
It'll
crisis.
all
What's
make
going on?
sense.
That's all. Like that's a lot of people are just like, are you okay, man? Like it's all good. And I was like, yeah, like I'm gonna cook. I'm gonna
Stress
do it.
leave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically it. And then it's like you just kind of with all that stuff, I just started being like, okay, I just have to put myself out there. I can't tell anyone why I'm doing it yet, but I'm not gonna let that stop me. I want to do this. So I really like leaned into social media because I had this background and I understood social media. I knew that this is all going to happen really quickly. Like MasterChef comes and MasterChef goes, and there's been many contestants that no one ever remembers ever again, and it's challenging to make sure that you like capture that moment. So I knew that I needed to have like a good platform, a good like brand and good image. So I actually worked with Tim and Matt from Dose Media.
Shout out to us.
Big time. And they, again, I think of like pivotal moments in my life was signing that contract, have them build my brand, was a moment that I think changed the trajectory of what my business became. And it was a big moment, and like huge shout out again to my wife. Like we're talking, it was a big branding project that we're taking on. Like it was a full website, full blog, logo creation.
It's amazing,
color
by the
theme,
way.
like everything.
Yeah, it is.
They did an unbelievable job.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I love the hats.
The
I
hats
love
are
their
dope. I should have
mugs.
brought you guys some. Yeah,
They're
yeah,
so sweet.
We actually, once we can afford a merch,
Yeah.
we'll get you a hat
yeah,
too.
for sure, for sure. But like that moment alone, just like working with people that know what they're doing, like it was a big gut check moment because it was basically like a down payment on the house on a house
Yeah.
to make it happen, and it was like okay. But then it's like these moments. It's trying to identify these moments that like if you're gonna make a bet, like there's certain moments that you're given. You're like, not many people get this opportunity to get on a national TV show, know that you finished second in a like medium-sized city that I knew would get behind it and get really fired up about it because I feel like that's the best thing about East Coasters is they support East Coasters.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I need to make this bet. Like, this is the time. Let's go.
Call your own number.
Yeah.
I
Like,
love that.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
That's
and then
okay.
it was that was go time, and then it was that whole winter. Again, people don't know what's up. They see me building out this brand. I launch a website. I start like doing in-home dinners for people, which was fucking terrifying. I would do like 6 people and be up for like a couple days. Like it's butterflies all day the day before, prepping like huge amounts of food. My wife would come with me and serve, and they're embarrassing kind of to look back on, but that was just over a year ago. February 3rd last year was the first time. Is that birthday?
That's my birthday.
No way.
February 3rd.
That's it.
Obviously
so I did
not
my first
that
ever
day.
dinner last like a year and like I guess like 13 months ago.
Wow.
For 6 people, and then just the speed and the momentum that's like picked up since then is crazy. Like I'm doing in not next weekend. I have a 300 person event. This upcoming weekend, I'm doing like 50 people. I did the Toronto Blue Jays. I did a dinner for the G7 energy ministers, the G7 speakers of the House. Like crazy, just the like the speed at which this all came at me. But it just like continuously being terrified and just continuously putting yourself in the position and then just making it happen. Like it's been a crazy learning experience, and I think that's a big takeaway from me is when I'm thinking about certain things with my business, with my life, with everything, it's like just put yourself in the position. Like at this point I feel like confident that I'm gonna show up, like I can perform in those moments, but it's sometimes really scary to put yourself in areas or opportunities that you can really fail at. Like that's terrifying, but you also can't succeed unless you put yourself in those positions. But it's just like getting those gut check moments to be like, there's no turning back. Like I almost like treat it as 2 different people. Like I think of myself in my business as more so my brand. So like I feel like I'm in control of my brand. I'm gonna be like, okay, like I did a cooking competition a couple weeks ago in Toronto, and I was like, oh my god, that sounds terrifying. Like I don't know if I could do it. Like there's no way I'm good enough. And then like part of me is like, that'd be a great strategic brand move. I'm gonna book the talent. He's going in, and just like book myself in. And then it's like, okay, well I just bought the plane ticket. Like I guess I'm going.
You're talking to yourself now.
Yeah. So
We're
it's
live,
just,
baby.
Yeah.
That's a riot.
But that's been the whole process. Just like keep throwing myself into it.
How much of a confidence boost was MasterChef? Like, say, before MasterChef, how were you feeling going into it as opposed to coming out?
So going into it, I really had 0 expectations because it's like I cook for friends. I like to cook. I thought my food tastes good.
Were the rest of the competitors coming in with like a huge background in cooking?
So it'd all be home cooks.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's all home cooks, and then so I felt. I didn't feel very confident at all. Like you go in the first weekend. I assumed that would have been like a good thing. It was like they brought in 21 people and they cut like basically half of that over the first weekend. I was like, if I can make it through that, that'd be pretty cool. Like I'll make it in the top 12. That's cool. Like that's 2 episodes. That's all I want. And then even in that first episode, I had the second top dish. There was 3 that they selected out of the 21. I was one of them for like the exceptional dishes of the group. I was like, whoa, holy
What'd
shit!
you make?
Like, had a whole narrative around it too.
Okay.
So the whole marketing part of it like played into it because I wanted to be, and I'm a big time food nerd, so I know that chefs that I really look up to tell a story about where they're from, and it's all about like your local ingredients, the local story. Like tell people where you're from and why they should care. It's like anything; it's just marketing. It's a story, and so I did scallops. So that was the big thing, and it was like I did Digby scallops, and then talked about like with a bacon dashi and a few different pickles and stuff like that. But then I poured a dashi as like a broth that's made with seaweed, And then basically at the service, I poured in the dashi and said that this is like Bay of Fundy scallops, and this is the Bay of Fundy rushing in, and talked about like just kind of the narrative behind it, and they loved it. They loved it. So did Nova, and that became part of it too. Is like I got deeper into the show. I was like, okay, regardless of what happens, if I win, lose, or otherwise, I don't really care. This is a big platform, and a lot of people are going to be watching this. So like, what do I want to say? Like, what do I want my brand to be? Moving forward.
Very strategic.
Yeah, and like I knew it's like I know East Coasters are gonna support. Like that's the best part about the East Coast is we all get behind East Coasters. So I really like fed into the East Coast part of it. And I feel like it was like a strategic brand decision, but it also like coming back and seeing all the support I got and just the experiences and opportunities I've got over the last year. It's like manifested itself into like a really big loving passion for where I'm from, and now it's like I'm so proud to be from Nova Scotia. I'm so proud to be from Atlantic Canada, like representing or even being part of the food scene and being able to do that like with MasterChef. It's a national audience, so I have even through Instagram and social, I have like a bit of a national presence, I guess, just from the show. So it's been cool to be looked at as like my friends in Vancouver or like people I meet in Toronto. They're like, oh, you're the guy from Nova Scotia. I was like, that's fucking cool. Like I love that being part of the brand, and that was again a strategic brand decision, but also because it's authentic, it's true, it's real, and it's
easy to run with.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great way to leverage your brand. I mean, we're a very supportive bunch over here.
Yeah, big time.
We've kind of noticed that just by starting the podcast.
Totally.
So many amazing connections we've already made.
That's it. It's the same thing. It's just putting yourself out there.
Right?
Yeah.
We kind of thought, this is kind of a sidebar, like some people are like, just do it. Just do what you want to do and you'll figure it out. And it's like, well, that might not always work. But no, what kind of happens is you just do it. And then there's all these other people that are just doing it.
Yeah.
And then they embrace you in that community.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as you
big
probably
time.
seen, it's just onward and upward.
Big time. Yeah, totally.
Was there anything that you reminded yourself of? Like, was there maybe like a saying or perhaps a mantra that you were able to rely on to get through those terrifying times? I mean, that's something I always struggle with myself. Just trying to maybe break past that.
Yeah, I know exactly.
So I try and remind myself, you've done this before.
Yeah.
You've survived.
Yeah.
You can do it again.
Yeah.
But that might not always be the case for some folks. Maybe they haven't experienced it. It's for the first time. Or
it's super interesting. So there is one that I've been like really trying to get in my head a lot lately, and I think it all goes back to sports again, because growing up I was on a lot of like tier 2 teams, so it would be like playing Bantam AAA, but I'm on like one of the worst teams in the league. So a lot of those teams instilled almost like a culture, not a culture of losing, but I was like okay with losing, because it was like, well, you're on a shitty team, no expectations, it's all good, it's all part of like life, is you might lose. And I think that like going through MasterChef and kind of pushing myself out there more, I was like, I started, and even now I'm trying to do it even more, because even after MasterChef I was like, oh, it's all good, it's all good, you lost, it's no biggie at all. But now I'm like trying to tell myself, it's like, no, you can win, you deserve to win, and you can do it. And that's something I'm trying to like tell myself more and more. And like even in those moments when I was at that like competition in Toronto, and I was going up against some like really, really legit chefs. Like some of them were on Top Chef. It's just basically MasterChef, but for like really legit chefs. And I beat them. I finished, but again, hilariously, I finished second. But like going into the night before, I was super nervous, because there's like a big crowd watching. There's like people it's a notable event where people are watching who's winning this. Like the winner from last year is on this season of Top Chef. Like brands are watching, people are watching. It's a notable event. And I was just like, you can win. You deserve to win. It's all good. Like, it's scary. Sometimes it's scary to win too, but it's like, you can win.
You deserve this, man.
You deserve it. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I've got to get into
but
that
it's hard,
mindset. It is
it
tough.
almost makes you feel awkward sometimes. I found that for a long time. It's like, oh, that sounds weird to say, but it's like, I feel like that's the winners that, like the big time winners that I read about. That's what they're just
That's their
insanely
mentality.
confident.
Yeah.
They just like manifest it to happen.
Mark Messier.
I feel like that's half it. It's just like believe it's good. Do you
So
believe that
true.
you deserve it? Because if you don't, then you're probably not going to.
Very true. And another, characteristic about East Coasters is we are a humble bunch.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
it doesn't come naturally to be like,
Yeah.
I'm the best. I'm
Yeah.
going to do this. But it really, we talked about how the universe, kind of works
Yeah.
in certain ways.
Yeah.
But when you really can manifest
Totally.
that for you, you can clear that path.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not even like thinking you're the best. It's just knowing that you can. Like
Yeah.
you can do it. That's been like the big thing. It's just I know I'll never ever be the best cook, the best chef. There's always going to be people locally that could kick my ass in the kitchen, but I still feel like I can win. And they're different things, being the best and winning, I think.
Because it's not just, like you said, it's not just about the food.
It becomes a business. It's
Yeah.
a story. It's a platform. It's a lot.
It's full experience.
Yeah.
Just remind yourself, you deserve it.
Yeah.
You're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, we haven't really named it, but we've been talking about Andy's East Coast Kitchen for
Yes.
the last little while.
Shout out.
Shout
out Andy's
Shout out
Kitchen.
Andy's East Coast Kitchen. Watched
Guy is a legend.
we were talking today. It's like, what a great idea, the lobster bake that you did on Herring Cove,
Yeah.
which I didn't know that path went way down there.
Oh, it's beautiful down
But,
there.
like, why not
Goes
go
deep.
out, set up shop, film it. People are going to be walking the trail.
Yeah.
It's just connection. I love
Yeah,
it.
It was super cool. And that was something when I started working with Matt and Tim at Dose, was talking about like that is we really started getting into like what is your competitive advantages when you're going through like the branding rubric and talking about like what it all looks like, and we started realizing it's like no matter what you do, it's been done. Like there's no real dishes that you can create. There's some obviously, but like there's not many dishes that you can create that haven't been done before. There's really not that many brands that you can build that haven't done something similar. There's no catering company that you can build that hasn't been done before. They're like, what you can't emulate anywhere else in this country is where we live, and that needs to be like a pillar of the brand. And I was really fascinated with like outdoor cooking, and I like love fire, and that became like a big pillar of the whole brand. Like it's in my logo is a fire flame.
And do you relate that back to your time in Asia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like definitely.
Because that those two words just resonated with me
Big
since,
time.
since you explained that.
Yeah.
Like fire and eating outside in
Exactly.
the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not
It-
similar to Halifax or Nova Scotia. But
Yeah, and it's I think too it was something that I felt in my old world of like work, like the piece that when I would read these like self-help books or whatever, they talk about like different parts of your life. It's like your relationship life, your financial life, like your whatever, and then it'd be like your adventure, like your sense of adventure. Do you feel satisfied with the sense of adventure that you're having? And I always like, no, I don't at all. Like I go to work, I go to the gym, I'll like maybe play hockey, and that's kind of it. Like I don't feel like, and at that point I just had a kid, so there's no like piecing out and going traveling. Like
You're full on
yeah,
routine.
you got responsibility. So I always felt like I was lacking in the adventure side. So I knew like going into this new thing, if I'm going to try to build a national brand, nowhere else in Canada can emulate where we live. This place is spectacular. I want to put that on display. But then it was like, I also want to like get outside and go hiking and have fires and cook over open flames because that would fulfill me. So then it was like, and then I knew it's like, if we're going to do that, I should like figure out how to capture that digitally and put that online and try to push it and just build the brand further. And video's been like a big pillar of what I'm trying to do, and still haven't figured it out. Like working strategically with Dave Culligan, who does tons of videos in the city. He's phenomenal.
Shout out Dave Culligan.
Yeah, big time.
shout out DC.
Yeah. He's done amazing work with me. That video down in Herring Cove,
He
did.
shot that, right?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great. Him and Gavin, his business
The
partner.
lobster rolls?
Yeah, the lobster rolls.
yeah.
Yeah.
The hot dog
God,
buns.
they look
Yeah.
so good.
It was crazy. That one got like a lot of views, and
Yeah.
people really liked it. It was cool.
Man, that is like a pure idea.
Yeah.
It is.
Right.
It is really, really good idea. Like it's a really good idea because it's exactly what you just suggested.
Yeah.
You could almost even keep this in. Like, it is something that most people could do
Yeah.
aside from that flair,
Yeah.
the Atlantic Canadian flair,
That's
where
it.
you're able to highlight
Yeah.
East Coast
Yeah.
and exactly what you want.
Yeah.
With the open flame.
That's it.
Outside,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say historic, but what would you call
just
here?
iconic, like
Iconic
Nova
spot,
Scotia
yeah.
view. Like
Yeah.
it was just the granite rocks, the ocean. Like that's been one thing that I tried. I think when I came back from the show, I was like almost feeling like pretty insecure about my actual technique and the way I cooked, because it wasn't like classical French. Like I don't know. I still have no idea how to do any of it, and like my plating is good, but it's not like very fine dining. And I felt that I was like very embarrassed. Like even still, there's part of me that it's like you feel like an imposter because I don't know that world. But like one thing that I try to really focus on is like, okay, let's look at this ingredient, like lobster. And again, I'm getting a lot of like, from the catering perspective, I'm getting a lot of people from like out of town coming to Nova Scotia with like a corporation, and they want like a truly Nova Scotian experience. And they're like, okay, cool. Like, well, we're going to try to rent out this spot, and we want to do like a big lobster boil. And it's like, okay, that's cool. I get it. Really, that isn't the way Nova Scotians eat lobster. It's not the way I eat lobster. Like if I'm eating lobster and it's a whole lobster, I want to be around a picnic table, standing up, newspaper around, like drinking beer. Like that's how I think a lot of Nova Scotians eat lobster.
That like red and white
Yeah.
picnic table.
And it's
like,
not like
so
sitting
cute.
at like a nice restaurant.
No.
Like that gives
like
me anxiety. Just thinking
dipping
about
in
You're
butter
the
and like
cafeteria. Like,
yeah.
cracking the shells and not worrying about the
Exactly.
juices.
Just
You're
don't worry about it.
Free
and
for all.
That's the real experience. So I always like try to like
100%.
bring that to them and be like, that's how you would do it. If you want, like, obviously you have this space and you want to have lobster. Of course, we could do like a fancier style, like lobster ravioli. But if you really want the Nova Scotian experience and you want my interpretation of the best way to eat lobster, it's a lobster roll. 100%. I don't care if it's like in a fancy restaurant. If you want to eat the best possible way to eat this crustacean, I'd say, and I started asking people like randomly, being like, what's your favorite way to eat a lobster roll? No context. And started just asking people, because I knew that if I was going to put this, and my company, because we deal with the corporate high-end market, we have like a pretty big price tag. So part of me is like, can I really get away with charging that and serving a lobster roll? But customers love it because it's real. And like people, you go to these corporate dinners sometimes and they're so stuffy, and they're all like the same dinner over and over. Yeah. And then I try to bring something that's like a little bit more playful, and it's like it resonates really strongly. But that comes back to the brand. It's like really think about like what is real Nova Scotian food, and how do I put my interpretation on it without just automatically going like fine dining. Like how can I make it approachable and real?
Yeah, I think it just really comes back down to the story behind the food when you're eating it. Because back to Southeast Asia again, and I don't want this to come off as pretentious, but just every meal you eat, you just feel so much more connected to it.
Yeah.
Because you know what's behind it, you see everything that went behind it right in front of your eyes. Yeah. So I think when you're eating in the corporate room, you've got the lineup of the servers ready to delve out the meals that have just been dolloped onto all the plates. Like there's nothing behind that.
It's really interesting that I never thought of this or made this connection before. But so really my business from a catering perspective, what we do is we can go into any location and create what we say is like a world-class dining experience. Really East Coast focused, especially in the summertime when it is a lot of like high-end corporate clients. But I'm just realizing like all of it as well is I always set up the kitchen basically where the diners can see it. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot of work in like the Keith's Brewery, the old Keith's Brewery, and I bring in like camp stoves. They're straight up camping stoves and like portable ovens.
Shout out Costco.
Shout out Costco for sure. Canadian Tire, what's up?
Yeah, baby.
And then we just set it up, but it's like butane burners, and like you can see us cooking, and we're just like it's popped up tables. We're just slinging around, but I think that it resonates with people, like you said, because you can see what's happening. And like there's so many catering things where it'd be like tucked around the corner around drapes, and it's just like pulling out steam things that they cooked off site. And we're obviously cooking off site, but I try to make it like we have those like they're called like Dixies or like containers, clear plastic containers. You've seen them in every single restaurant kitchen. Ever. Exactly. But I try to put like the most colorful ingredients at the front so people can see it. And like when we're plating, I want people to like see it, because I think that that's part of what we can do differently is make it an experience. Because I think like food is cool now. Like people are intrigued by food and the production, and
people are stopping to take pictures of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally.
Before they even eat it, they could be starving.
Yeah. A week. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
I think
But
it's. Oh, sorry.
No,
You weren't done.
It was just basically the correlation between like Southeast Asian cooking and these pop-ups that I'm doing now are actually like kind of similar, which I never really thought about.
And it's really cool to have the one item, lobster, served two completely different ways and have two absolutely different, like completely different experiences, right?
It's
so
what's also
cool.
cool about like Nova Scotian food is that I obviously try to think about it a lot, and I get asked this question, it's like, what is Nova Scotian food? And like lobster's an obvious one, and scallops, seafood, it's all obvious. One thing that I feel like is an underappreciated, probably specifically like Halifax HRM, is the influence of Lebanese and Greek food on like what it is, like what are actual Haligonians eating? Shawarmas. Like donairs, it's our city's city's dish, and I feel like that
KOD.
never gets talked about. It's like, oh, if Nova Scotia food is chowder and lobster rolls and scallops. It's like, yeah, but there's also like a slice is pretty damn good. The shawarmas are bomb. Like
We've added a few things since the 60s, you know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's
I think
so
it's
true.
going to be interesting, and I think like looking forward, I'm super intrigued to see what other dishes are going to just like stick. Like you think of all of the people from Syria that immigrated here. It's like that is going to have a major impact on our like food culture. And I can't wait to see like how that bubbles up and like what that turns into. Like what is the donair dish that is just going to be like a staple that everyone like, you travel anywhere in Canada, people are like, oh, you're from Halifax, you must love donairs. It's like, I find that such an interesting piece of Nova Scotia food.
That's really cool. I wonder
never
what
thought
it'll
of it
be.
like that.
Syrian
Yeah.
cuisine, that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
King of Donair, KOD, comes up
Showed up.
everywhere.
You mentioned to us off air that you are, because we're kind of looking, I think we're probably looking towards the future now, about a YouTube show.
Mm-hmm.
And you're working on doing, you've got your own kind of kitchen now.
Yeah.
/ studio.
Yeah.
/ garage.
That's it.
/ garage.
All in one.
Everything.
Yeah. It's amazing.
You can have concerts there too.
It's been a life-changing addition to my life. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What does the future hold?
So it's changing. So, future holds. On a family note, we're having another kid this summer, which is super exciting.
Congratulations.
Psyched
That's
about.
awesome.
Thank you. And then from a business perspective, it's an interesting time. It's as you guys can like relate to. It's like things seem to move fast, but then some days they seem to move really, really slow, and you're wondering, it's like, am I moving at all, or is this a waste of time? Like, what's happening? So it's basically what we're building out now is the boutique catering business is really, I think, hit a stride. We're starting to get really interesting contracts. We're making good partnerships. I think we're putting out some really cool food. I'm getting cooks from around the city that are coming from like some of the best restaurants and saying like, hey, like I would like to cook with you because the food that you guys are putting out seems kind of interesting, and it seems like you give your cooks autonomy to be creative. And I've been like, fuck yeah, like come and like let's create dishes, and nothing like we'll work as a team. Like I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not trained, but they come with different aspects and different views on food, and it's been really fun. But that's been the focus basically from the New Year's. As I got the new space, we built it out in my garage, like you said. It's like a small catering kitchen and YouTube studio. I hired my kitchen manager, Brad George. Shout out to Brad. So
Brad.
He's a great dude. Me and him have become very, very tight. Great cook, super organized dude, allowing me to build the business and like focus on the business while he comes from the kitchen world. He works at the canteen. And
Shout out canteen.
Shout out the canteen, and he also goes to NSCC marketing. So that's the cool thing with the catering piece is I think like in food, everyone notoriously talks about how bad the margins are because the overhead's so high. But what's good with me is like obviously it's in my own house, but I also it's the work we're doing is always tied to an event. So he doesn't come in unless there's an event. So like the business is working out. So it's allowing me to focus more on like how do I get more events, larger events, and then he can come in and properly like plan menus, order, like organize stuff in a way that kitchens are organized. Like I don't have any experience with it, and he's been really great to allow me to grow. And then we just brought on another one, Joe. Jojo from the Dojo is her Instagram handle. It's the best Instagram handle I've
That's
ever
amazing.
heard. And she's great too.
Jojo.
Like she's got a really interesting view on food. She's Korean and has so many cool recipes that we're just starting to dive into and try to figure out like, okay, well, I love those flavors. How do we bring that in with like East Coast food in a way that's approachable and all that stuff? So it's the food wise, it's really, really exciting right now, and I'm really excited where the business is going.
There's really endless possibilities.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, again, like before, what we were saying is like trying to remain focused. Like opportunities come in, but then it's like, okay, you gotta, and I've gone down a couple rabbit holes over the last year, but it's like, okay, this lane works. There's revenue here. I like doing it. It's not particularly a crowded space because we're like mid to small range events, but tend to be like higher end ones. So it's like basically from 20 to 75. That's our sweet spot, is we want those where maybe it's executives coming in from outside the city. They want like the East Coast experience. They want like
the Blue Jays, for example.
Exactly, yeah. So that was a great gig to be able to get.
Was that down on the waterfront?
That was in Keith's Brewery. So I've done a lot with Keith's. They've been an amazing brand partner, and setting me up with a lot. Yeah,
Shout
big
out
time.
Sterling.
Shout out Keith's. So that's been going well, and I think over the last year, it's obviously been Andy's East Coast Kitchen. That's been a big piece. But now as I bring on new people, I'm really trying to shift to the East Coast Kitchen. So I'm working with Tim and Matt at Dose right now to basically not reframe, but just remove the Andy's piece from it, just so it almost allows the company to grow. Mm-hmm. And then also, more importantly, the way I look at it is now that I'm hiring people, I want to give them like the feeling of ownership and feel like when they're talking to their friends at some of these cool restaurants, like it sounds kind of fucking dorky to be like, I'm at Andy's East Coast Kitchen, where I want them to be like, I'm at the East Coast Kitchen, where it's just like, it's theirs and it can be something that's not
sleek.
me. Yeah, I really love it. So that's rolling. And when I was at Salesforce, what I would always like, this is one of my like standard pitch lines, was like, every company's a media company, and I would say it over and over and over. And now, and like I'm in the position where I own my own company, I was like, it's true, like it is, like that's part of it. Like you got to get out, and you got to create content, and that's a full-time job in itself. Like I've focused a lot over the last year on Instagram. And it's a lot of work. And to build the community, to build it right, to build people, to get the following.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. It's a lot of work, and it's a crowded space. There's a lot of people, especially in food. There's a lot of food content out there that you got to be different, and you got to do something that resonates with people. But so social's been the big focus of me. But now that I'm trying to like taste my own medicine here and like build a media company, is like video is becoming really, really important to me. It's like, how do I now like take my brand message and amplify that on the internet,
scale.
Basically on digital? Like how do I like that one that we were talking about earlier, like going down to Herring Cove and doing like a lobster boil? Well, how do I go to like get on a lobster boat and do like the story of the fishermen and like do those big like video like travel documentary style stories, and put that on YouTube or put that on digital, or get like brand sponsors to come in and like sponsor these adventures? Could I do like a cooking segment and cooking shows? And this is
going to Asia again.
Yeah, like this. I always say it's like my ultimate dream.
Wait, are we going to
Asia?
Asia?
Oh my God, we're going.
We're going! Crab Island!
Yeah,
We're going!
So it's like I've always wanted to do. That's like the ultimate goal: travel food show.
That'd
Be a
be
poor
amazing.
man's Anthony Bourdain. I'll say
I
it
was
over and
just
over.
going to say that.
Yeah.
Was he a huge influence?
Big time, yeah.
He was
Like,
the man.
Just
R.I.P., by the
unreal.
way.
He's the
Big
fucking
time. Oh
man.
my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even, honestly, I didn't take in much of what they were talking about food-wise.
Yeah.
I was
Just
like maybe
conversations about
25%
life.
there, 50% of where they were, and
Yeah.
100% that guy.
Oh, he was unbelievable.
He was just
Yeah.
unreal.
Just
and
such
he could
a-
sell any
Yeah.
story and any food item. It was
even
amazing.
the business, like the way he spoke, the way he wrote. I read all his books.
It was incredible.
Every single piece of content he created, I basically consumed. But he was a very smart businessman. He was like, you think of what he was able to build. He wrote his book when he was 40. So then, like, I think he died. He was like, I don't even know how old. He's like mid-60s, maybe.
Yeah, 64.
So it's like,
Yeah.
and to go
Don't
from
fact check me,
a
but-
cook in New York City to being like arguably the coolest man in the world.
And he struggled for a bit.
Oh, big
while
time,
cooking.
yeah.
In
The
his
whole time, I
30s.
think.
like into his
Oh,
40s
big time,
before.
yeah.
Like, he was struggling.
Yeah, he was a heroin addict.
Right,
Yeah, he had a very hard go.
The stories about working in the kitchens in New York.
Oh, wild, man.
Crazy.
Wild. But again, you look at what he turned it all into. Like, he started with a book. He then went into, like, cookbooks. He did travel shows. He then went into, like, ZPZ Productions, which is a whole, like, media company now. So I see these are lofty goals, obviously, that I'm looking at. But, like, I really do...
You deserve it. You can win.
I'm just gotta push it. So we're gonna start putting out some more content. So that's where I'm talking with Dave Culligan right now.
Yeah.
Start to formalize something that we can kind of. I mean, his video team is unbelievable. They're always looking for content. I need someone to help me capture content. So we're trying to work through that. What that's all gonna look like now. But I think that's the next move for my part of the brand is like, how do I get out there and amplify as much as I can. To show off where we live, the food we do, and just start like creating content. It's gonna be a grind in a different way, but that's the route I think that I have an advantage in, and so I just want to go all in on it. So that's where the East Coast Kitchen's going. It's full on catering company, full on media company. They're all the same thing, but they're totally different.
All together in one.
Yeah.
All right, I think we'll take that moment to wrap things up here. Andy, we want to take the time again to say thanks so much for sitting down. He's currently being mauled / introduced, cuddled to Mello.
He's just saying,
Look at
hey.
him. He
He's
just
so
woke up.
friendly.
He's in a lovey-dovey mood. But yeah, it was awesome to learn about your story and Andy's East Coast Kitchen, soon to be the East Coast
That's
Kitchen.
it.
You're really excited for everything we got
Thanks for having me,
in
guys. I
store.
appreciate it.
I mean, hey, pleasure's all ours.
Yeah, but honestly,
He is going at that TV. That's hilarious.
he's just getting a little rub in.
Getting a little rub in.
No, but honestly, we can't thank you enough. This has been an incredible experience. We just went on a little bit of a sidebar off air, and yeah, it's just so powerful what you've been able to bring to not only us but every listener that we have with your story, and just how you've been able to kind of chase that success and keep pushing through. It's
Haven't
super
done anything
powerful.
yet.
Yeah,
But you can.
you can, and you deserve it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. For Brand New View, I'm Mark.
I'm Ben.
See you next week, folks.
Peace.
I was the same old me. I was the same old me. I was the same old me. With the same old blues. With the same old blues. With the same old blues. I was